Hi, this is your video about how to write a conclusion for 8th grade IPS science. So after this video, you should be able to explain why we write conclusions and give the general outline of all of our IPS science conclusions. So why do we write conclusions? Scientists like to summarize their findings and explain observations and phenomena. When we are communicating with other people about what we found out in a lab, it's usually more helpful to have kind of an organized, written summary of everything that we found and a potential explanation for what we noticed. So there's no standard conclusion, but there's a lot of different ways to write a conclusion. What we're going to go through is one way to write a conclusion so that we can easily communicate our findings with other students and with teachers. Paragraph 1, you will answer the problem, and this is where you're going to include your claim, evidence, reasoning. So first, you will restate the purpose, problem, or question. So your very first sentence should be something like, in this experiment or in this lab, we were trying to find out, and then you give what your purpose, problem, or question was. Then you will briefly explain how you did the experiment. This is kind of like a procedure overview in 1 or 2 sentences. You'll then give your claim, which remember is your answer to the problem, what you found out. Give your evidence. So now what data did you use to get to your claim? And then explain it in your reasoning. Explain your data, explain how it supports the claim, and then give an explanation of why it happened. You might just be coming up with your own explanation of why it happened, but a lot of times in 8th grade science we'll have new scientific principles that we've learned, and you can use those to help explain why the outcome was the way that it was, why your results happened. You're also going to discuss any outliers. So an outlier is a piece of data that doesn't fit in with the rest of the data. You're going to want to talk about any outliers that you got in your data and try to explain why they happened. Next is sources of error. So you're going to come up with at least 3 sources of error, and for each you will give a detailed explanation of what the possible mistake was and the possible effect that mistake had on your data. Remember, these are not calculation errors or errors about using the equipment wrong. These are procedural errors, things that that will affect your data the same way every time. Paragraph 3 is all about new information that you've learned. So you're going to want to explain what you've learned from doing this experiment and maybe previous experiments, from reading the textbook, class discussions, other practice problems that we've done. Make sure you include new concepts and vocabulary in your new information learned, and you're going to want to express them in a scientific way. You'll also want to make sure that you explain how this relates to the lab that we are doing. Paragraph 4 is the final paragraph. This is new questions and ideas. A lot of times when you do an experiment, or when any scientist does an experiment, it's going to lead to new questions, new problems, or just an interest in furthering their research. So this is where you will ask any new questions you come up with or explain any new ideas that you have. You're going to also, in paragraph 4, want to talk about how you could improve the design of this experiment. This isn't like being more careful or doing your calculations better. This is what should have been done differently in the procedure. And then also, if you're going to extend this experiment, what's next? What would be the next step in collecting more data to answer your question? And that's it.